Two appellate courts, the 9th, the 7th, multiple rulings. What's en banc mean? The United States Supreme Court waiting in the wings. All these things and more about the National Guard and a complete update. We cover it on Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip.
You got to give us the update on what's happening in circuit courts across this country on Trump's military invasions. There was the en banc. There was different en banc rulings in the Ninth Circuit. One not favorable, one favorable but procedural. The Seventh Circuit has made its voice heard. It's all going to the Supreme Court. Break it down.
Yeah, we'll do it in reverse order. The Seventh Circuit decision over Chicago, which blocked the deployment, putting the military, the National Guard military on the streets, was appealed by Donald Trump. It's the only one he appealed. The Ninth Circuit stuff over California and Oregon, he hasn't taken appeals from. He's been on the winning side of most of it. So, of course, he's not the one to appeal it. So the first case that shot up to the Supreme Court, it's still sitting there. As we're on tonight, we don't have the ruling yet for the United States Supreme Court. Could happen at any moment. When it does, I'll update everybody on Legal AF Substack Live, and Ben and I will do videos on it. What it has been sitting with the Supreme Court on an emergency application to block the block, meaning allow the deployment of Illinois National Guard for like over a week now. That usually is a sign not that they're trying to figure out how to count to 5, which is the amount of Supreme Court justices you need to make the ruling. It's because somebody or many people are writing opinions to go with it. Because as we know, it chaps our ass. But as we know, on an emergency application, you get a 1-paragraph order that says, we're blocking, it's not substantive. If there's a future appeal on the merits, we may or may not. That's all you get. But then you get the concurrence, the dissent, the double dissent, the concur. So that's what's being written right now. If I was a betting person, we're waiting on a dissent, a scathing dissent from somebody like Sotomayor and or Kagan or Ketanji Brown Jackson. My guess is Sotomayor. My backup is Ketanji Brown Jackson. And they get the courtesy of being given the time to write it and circulate it and all of that. And then other people can, like Kavanaugh, my colleague got it wrong, or Amy Coney Barrett can jump in to try to punch the nose of Ketanji Brown Jackson again. So that's what's going on. And it's taken them a minute to do it. Just like we waited for, what are they doing on Abrego Garcia? And all of a sudden, like you and I, our phones blew up 1 a.m. on a Saturday Eastern time, but they just ruled. So get ready for that ruling. I think it's going to be in favor of the Trump administration, unfortunately. Again, with them saying, but it's not on the merits, so we can sleep at night, even though the rest of us can't sleep at night because of all their rulings. So that's the Seventh Circuit case. I'll go back to Illinois in a minute and talk about the trial court. Just to remind our audience, even though things go up at the top level on appeals, it doesn't stop the below, the trial court judges doing their job in progressing the case, either towards a preliminary or a permanent injunction, or new facts, new hearings, new motions, new complaints. That all still goes on below the surface as these other top level issues get appealed. It doesn't stop the case, usually. I mean, there are circumstances where it can. In the Ninth Circuit, the Ninth sits over both Oregon and California. So when people hear Ninth Circuit just did something, you have to then tie it back on a graph, which we try to do on Legal AF and Meidas, to which case we're talking about, which order is being blocked. And then it's a block of a block. And if it's a block of a block, what does that really mean? Well, that's why you come to Legal AF and MeidasTouch. So and then what's en banc? All right. So in the federal circuit, the Ninth Circuit, for instance, there's 25 plus judges, but the en banc panel is 11. It's 10 randomly selected judges and the chief judge. That panel, if there's enough votes to have an en banc decision, will review what a 3-judge panel, which is your normal panel. When you hear a circuit court, a Ninth Circuit, Seventh Circuit, Fifth Circuit has ruled, that is generally, unless it's en banc, 3 judges randomly selected. That is the Ninth Circuit's decision on that matter. Most cases, 99% of cases, do not get en banc review. You then have to request somebody, either a judge on that circuit, or the parties have to ask for it en banc. There has to be enough votes, like a majority, that think it's interesting for en banc. Then they set up the en banc panel, new briefing, new oral argument, new ruling. So we've had the en banc panel for California keep in place the original decision to allow Trump to use California National Guard and other National Guard people in California, even though he seems to be making his policy now by whatever the tech bros tell him. Since the tech bros told him San Francisco is copacetic, he's not sending in the National Guard. That's who the president of the United States relies on. Friends to give him money, friends to give him advice about his policy. We don't have a president of the United States. He's just a kibitzer in his golf course, picking up tips about how to run the government. So the Ninth Circuit said on California, we're going to allow deployment. Oregon, 3-judge panel ruled in favor of the Trump administration in Oregon and allowed for a moment the deployment. But then an en banc panel, the 3-judge panel, blocked their own decision to stop the deployment until another en banc panel of 11 judges get together to talk about Oregon matters. All that, so we're all block, waiting for en banc, California allowed to be deployed. We're still waiting to see what happens with Oregon. Switch back to Illinois for one quick hot second. You got Judge Ellis, one of 2 trial court judges dealing with things on the streets in Illinois. She's dealing with, as you said, this eye-popping, the fact that you and I have to talk about the fact that a federal judge had to order the government not to attack journalists, clergy, and First Amendment protesters and shoot them in the face with pepper balls and use other instruments and equipment of war against American citizens on the streets of America is just mind-boggling. She ordered them to wear their cameras because they weren't wearing their cameras regularly, their body cams. And they tried to blame the shutdown. Well, go borrow money from Timothy Mellon and get your cameras on. So she said, I'm not buying that. Get the cameras on. And then when the local news, this is where, our brethren, our colleagues in local reporting are so important. You do a lot of good coverage about, today in the abuse of civil liberties on the streets of America. Look at this video. But a lot of that's coming off the streets from Americans. That's where the crowds come in, and from journalists who are reporting on these things. And as soon as she said, no more tear gas without warnings, no more use of this type of non-lethal munitions, local news reporting was like, well, this happened today in a neighborhood in Chicago, and this happened today. Why isn't this a violation of Judge Ellis's order? She got to see the videos, and she wants to know the same. She wants those questions answered. So she's pulled in multiple people at the head of the Customs Border Patrol and Homeland Security to testify under oath to her why this is being done and why her orders are being violated as a first step, I'm sure, towards contempt. But thank God we've got judges like Judge Ellis, but look at what their orders have to look like against the Trump administration, who, let's just strip away all of the bullshit and the nomenclature. Donald Trump is attacking Americans and their civil liberties on the streets of America for political gain every day. That's it. You can sugarcoat it. You can troll me. You can say what you want, but these are not Tren de Aragua. These are not illegal migrants with undocumented status. These are Americans that Donald Trump disagrees with, 61% of them, and instead wants to do, AI fighter jet video of him crapping all over America while he tears down the White House. If you were on the fence before, and there were people who were independent voters or Democrats that didn't like Kamala or Joe Biden at the end, or Republicans that were like, yeah, but he's great for taxes, while they're playing a round of golf. Get off the fence. Now is the time to take a stand. This is where the courage of the 3 C's of Rob Bonta come in. You must take a stand. You must be able to look your family and friends and future generations in the eye. And when they say, hey, what did you do in 2025 and 2026 when the out of control, unconstitutional, depraved Trump administration was running amok? Where were you? What did you do? You need to be able to answer that question. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so you don't have to. It's every Wednesday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the MeidasTouch Network with a commercial-free replay over on Legal AF Substack. People ask, how can we support what you do on Legal AF? How do we support and make sure we get that independent commentary like no other and make sure it's not taken off the air? We're under attack, folks. Governmental assault at the highest levels, MeidasTouch and Legal AF. The way to support us is what you're doing. Free subscribe over on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Become a paid member, if you can swing it, for $6.77 a month over on the Substack. And then continue to help grow the Legal AF podcast community. We're top 20 because of you of all podcasts on YouTube, and number 1 for law and politics. Audio, we could use a little love, a little hummingbird theory to help us continue to grow that community. So thank you for being a supporter of Legal AF. I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.